If I had to describe the LH1 to you guys in one phrase, it would be high risk, high reward. Because in the right hands, this gun can absolutely decimate entire squads, or at the very least, leave them reeling, making it an easy cleanup for you and your teammates. I'm going to be honest with you though. Learning this weapon and getting to a point of consistently dealing maximum damage is not an easy feat, because it is a balance of patience, pacing, and positioning. But don't worry, because in this masterclass, I'm going to break down every aspect of the LH1, from the mechanics of the weapon, how to shoot it in different ranges, and how to aim train with it in-game, so that you can tame this beast and fully utilize one of the most powerful offensive weapons in the game. So before we get into that, if this video helps you out in some way, shape, or form, please smash that like button. It's a small button for you, but it means the world to me and makes a tremendous impact on my channel. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell and subscribe for all things the finals. As usual, I left timestamps down below, so let's cut the bullshit and jump straight into it. The LH1 is a light weapon that has massive damage potential, but is offset by its barely manageable recoil and visual clutter. However, with a little bit of time and understanding, you will acquire a skill trait that will set you apart from the rest of the player base, because unlike the XP54, not just any player can pick this weapon up. Yes, you may be able to pump out a few kills, but can you do it on a consistent basis? Can you maintain that level of damage and time to kill in 8 out of 10 engagements? Can you reproduce the same amount of damage at far range that you can at medium and close range? These are the factors that can separate a good LH1 player from a deadly one that can do devastating damage to multiple players or even entire squads. So to make the process of learning this weapon a little easier, I've come up with the rule of 3 Ps: patience, pacing, and positioning. If you follow these rules, your accuracy and efficiency with this weapon will double in no time. So let's start with patience. This weapon has a base damage of 49 and can crit for 98 damage with an RPM of 300. It can kill a light in 0.6 seconds with body shots and 0.2 seconds with crits, with just 2 to 4 shots to kill. A medium at 1 second for all body shots and 0.4 seconds for all crits, with 3 to 6 shots to kill, and a heavy at 1.4 seconds for all body shots and 0.6 seconds for all crits, with a staggering 4 to 8 shots to kill. The damage drop-off minimum range is 80 meters and the maximum range is 100 meters. To compare, this gun has the same amount of range as the sniper, but with a much faster time to kill for both medium and heavy. Now that we have a little bit of perspective and know that each of these shots will take a massive chunk of health from the enemy, you understand now that you don't necessarily need to spam fire this weapon in order for it to be effective. You can take your time in engagements to micro adjust if the visual recoil is starting to obstruct your view. This especially applies to mid to far ranging engagements. If you realize that you missed more than 2 consecutive shots, take your time to readjust to make sure that the target is centered. Having the understanding that even though your fire rate is below 300, this gun's time to kill still beats the vast majority of guns in the game. So it is okay to be patient, to ensure that your opponent is exactly where they need to be. On a side note, if you're using the 8-bit comeback skin, just know that this is currently paid to lose due to the muzzle flash causing unnecessary visual recoil, making this weapon harder to handle than it already is. Yes, I personally use a skin because A, I'm a masochist, and B, it's one of my favorite skins in the game. So with that in mind, use it at your own risk. If you want the most optimal skin, you can use the default one along with its color variations. Now we're moving on to pacing, which goes hand in hand with patience. Pacing can slightly variate from person to person, depending on how fast you can click your mouse or trigger, but there is a universal threshold that if you go beyond, will cause you to miss over 90% of your mag. The key is to find a pace that is comfortable for you to consistently maintain, but does not go beyond this threshold. I recommend maintaining a fire rate between 270 to 290 RPM, which should look something like this. Pacing your shots will allow you to manage the visual recoil and micro adjust if need be. You could even go as low as 260. But then you run the risk of other weapons out damaging you. Once that you have found the fire rate, or should I say rhythm, that you're most comfortable with, I want you to strictly maintain it during the training routine later in this video, unless specifically instructed otherwise, as well as for all your engagements in-game. This is to help rewrite the fight or flight response of firing as fast as you can when in stressful situations. Now lastly, we move on to positioning, and I'm going to break this down to you in 2 categories: the position of the reticle and the position of the player. If you're just starting to use the weapon or just not used to it, I highly suggest that your reticle be at chest level, because getting used to the recoil of this gun, whether you are on MnK or controller, is not an easy task task in live engagements. I'm not going to be one of those channels to tell you just to memorize the recoil pattern, because 99.9% of players are not thinking about which way the bullet will stray in the middle of an engagement. And if they are, they probably are already dead. Aiming for the chest will allow us room for error, and that is the name of the game, to acquire as much room for error as possible in order to compensate for this weapon's volatile behavior, whether it be through pacing or reticle positioning. Now when the recoil starts to kick, I want you to then utilize recoil smoothing by counter-strafing to compensate for the rest. Now in terms of player positioning, when engaging opponents at mid-range or even a sniper at far ranges, if you go below half the mag and your enemy is not below half health, follow this rule of thumb. Retreat, recalibrate, and reposition, because odds are you are leaving yourself wide open to be attacked from different angles due to the amount of time it takes to completely unload the entire mag. I can guarantee you 8 out of 10 times you'll either be killed, left one shot, or even flanked. So stay proactive and ensure that you're always moving, and learn when to live to fight another day, because no one is useful to their teammates when they're dead. Now in close ranges, things can get a little bit tricky, because the LH1's hipfire, unlike its peers, has some of the worst bullet dispersion in the game. You have to be literally kissing your opponents to land your shots. Instead, try to maintain 10 to 15 feet of distance, while firing ADS and utilizing some sort of cover when getting into an engagement, to negate as much damage as possible. Because if you're taking them head on 5 to 15 feet away, you will either be left one shot, trade, or completely be decimated by any medium or heavy that has somewhat decent aim, regardless if you stun them or not. Now in the case that you do not have any cover and have no choice but to engage the opponent, get up extremely close to them, keeping them centered while moving around the character model. This is even more effective against heavy classes, being that it can get very disorientating when you not only have to track a light moving at high speeds, but have to also look down while doing it. I want to say a disclaimer though, this is a very high risk move, and you probably will have a 50-50 shot of making it through the engagement alive, but 50% is better than nothing. So before we get started with this training routine, I want to let you guys know that training with this weapon is the same for both inputs, because the LH1 is most accurate when acquiring a target, centering it, then aiming down sights. This will minimize the amount of micro adjustments needed for MnK, and at the same time utilize the benefits of target snapping for controller. Managing recoil is also the same for both inputs by pulling down and counter-strafing to activate recoil smoothing as well as aim assist for controller. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get started with this LH1 aim training routine. 3, 2, 1. Now if you've seen or used any of my guides before, you know that we always start up with a centering warm-up. But this time, it's with a twist, because like I said before, hip firing with this weapon is absolutely atrocious, unless you are right up in the opponent's face. So what we are going to do is keep the target centered at all costs, and hip fire when they're right up close. Then start to ADS when we're 2 to 5 feet away, moving around the target and constantly repositioning, making ourselves as elusive as possible, crouching or sliding, because along with horrible hip fire, the in-air accuracy is just as bad. I want you to do this for 5 minutes. So before we move on to our first exercise, we need to find out the shot rhythm we are most comfortable with, which can lie between 270 to 290 RPM. This will again variate from person to person depending on how fast you are able to click the mouse, as well as how consistently you are able to do it. This is how the shot rhythm should sound and look like, compared to something above 290 RPM. As you can see, the speed reduction is very slight, but has a significant difference, which is even more pronounced the farther away the target is. What I want you to do now is find the shot rhythm that you can consistently reproduce. When you find that out, add a layer of recoil control on top of it by slightly pulling down while completely unloading your mag. Do this for 5 minutes. This rhythm should be strictly maintained in all your scenarios, and broken only to recalibrate your aim when the visual recoil has lost the target's line of sight. The only exception to this rule is on our very last scenario when engaging a target at very far ranges, where you have no choice but to drastically decrease your RPM in order to land consistent damage on the target. So now that we know our shot rhythm, let's start with our first scenario. Stationary mid-range dynamic tracking. I want you to stand still near the back ledge and off the mat, while using your shot rhythm and slightly pulling down to track the first dynamic, aka moving target. Eliminate 10 targets before moving on. Next, I want you to remain at this distance and add a layer of movement by utilizing counter-strafing to eliminate the target 10 times while maintaining your shot rhythm and slightly pulling down. Moving on to far range engagements, Get on top of the ledge and perform the same 2 scenarios on the farthest moving target, eliminating it 10 times while standing still and another 10 while counter-strafing, all while, again, maintaining shot rhythm and slightly pulling down. If keeping a constant rhythm is too hard for you when tracking this target, you can split up this rhythm into 2 4-shot bursts, allowing you to readjust and recalibrate the reticle in between bursts. Now the next 2 scenarios are going to revolve around target switching. We're going to get on the mat near the barrier. In this scenario, we're going to be constantly moving and eliminating the first moving target as well as one of the light targets in one clip. When you switch targets, make sure you get out of ADS, center the target, then go back into ADS. This will help you recalibrate and make the process of acquiring your target very fast, minimizing the amount of micro adjustments needed to lock on. Also on controller, again, it will help you build a habit of fully utilizing target snapping. This essentially also eliminates most of the micro adjustments when acquiring your target. As usual, I want you to prioritize counter strafing against the moving target and to maintain your shot rhythm. 1 clip each pair 10 times. If you want to add a layer of difficulty, replace the light target with the heavy, and then proceed to 1 clip both medium and heavy targets 5 more times. For the next target switching scenario, I want you to make your way back to the ledge, giving you an entire view of the firing range without any of the targets overlapping each other. Next, shoot 1 bullet into each target, going in then out of ADS when switching, just like the last scenario. Again, remember to center while in hip fire, then ADS, to minimize the amount of micro adjustments. Do 5 sets of shooting each target from front to back before moving on. Now we have finally arrived at our very last scenario, where we are going to first jump onto the heavy class and destroy this portion of the building. Next, get to this back wall here on the upper ledge. When you have nothing obstructing your view, then hop back on light, utilizing a much slower rhythm, and try to maintain constant DPS while tracking the first moving target. Eliminate the target 5 times to complete the routine. And that's about it. As you guys could already tell from all the scenarios, the key to the LH1 is to prevent your fight or flight responses from taking control in stressful situations, causing you to spam fire. And depending on how well you can maintain your composure will determine if this weapon is extremely deadly or extremely useless. So if this video helped you out in some way, shape, or form, please smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for all things the finals and to ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming Masterclass videos. Also follow me on Twitter for the most recent updates and release schedules. Peace and love, guys, and I'll see you next time.